On October 18, 1871, the deadliest fire in U.S. history came to place in Peshtigo, Wisconsin. You may have never heard about this fire due to the Great Chicago Fire that blazed on the same night, but in a much more well-known city. The Peshtigo Fire was actually more destructive than the Chicago Fire, scorching 1.2 to 1.5 million acres and claiming between 1,500 and 2,500 lives. The inferno was so large that it actually jumped part of the Green Bay into Door and Kewaunee counties of Wisconsin. In order to show some light to this great tragedy, we will look into the fire itself and how it began, the accounts of a survivor, and the aftermath of the fire. The first and foremost important piece of this event is the fire. During this time in Peshtigo, there were railroads being built like crazy to transport logs because the logging business was absolutely booming up there. So the fire ended up they were burning brush from clearing out the railroad, and that fire ended up causing the Peshtigo fire. And another big factor coming into this fire is the city had been in a really bad drought, like a historically bad drought. And that made everything very dry and flammable, and it was also really windy at the time. It was just kind of a really bad situation to have an accidental fire. 800 lives were lost in Peshtigo alone. In an article by Aaron Blakemore in 2023 titled "How the 1871 Peshtigo Fire Became America's Deadliest Wildfire," the author writes, "Building after building ignited, and many burned before anyone could find their way out. Those who did make it to the river watched helplessly as their entire town burned to the ground. Cows and horses rushed into the river too, causing a scene of anguish and chaos. Some who ran in the river drowned or died of hypothermia." This quote shows how devastating the blaze in Peshtigo really was, and what everyone had to do to keep themselves safe from the fire, which was run into a creek with livestock and everything else and just try to stay safe. You can only imagine how horrifying that was. And this is right here. This is Green Bay, and the fire started right here in Peshtigo and worked its way around here and ended up jumping like right here and then came back up and burnt all that across Green Bay. There are several witnesses and survivors, I guess, that went through the fire and came out and were able to tell a story. Not many of them were able to return back to their normal lives, and there are a lot of accounts that can't be proven because it did happen in 1871, but there are some first-hand journals that they were able to uncover at the Peshtigo Museum in Wisconsin, and their website is where you can find a bunch of survivor accounts just like this one. In an article called "Survivor Wesley Duckett," out in 2017 by the Peshtigo Fire Museum, the article states, "Duckett said he would never forget the events that took place the next morning. My mother and father were temporarily blind. I went to see Miss Reinhardt, our neighbor, and I found her dead. I liked her a lot, and that really hurt me. Her shawl had not completely burned, and I took the corner that was left and kept it with me for many years." This account shows what really took place because of the fire. Like this young boy's parents, a lot of people were temporarily blinded just by the heat of being around the fire. Because if you can imagine, when a city's on fire, it's hot for a very large radius around the city, and your eyes are really vulnerable to that. Some other accounts on the website recall balls of fire coming out from the blaze just from it being so aggravated, and that's how it spread a lot. It would just, you can see like up here, there would be debris that comes out and lights other things on fire. People that were running away would spontaneously combust because of how hot it was, especially small people. And although it seems overshadowed by the Chicago fire and its colorful stories, the Peshtigo fire was more destructive and very interesting in its own ways. The size of the blaze, the chaos that it caused for citizens, and after it is truly remarkable. People's lives were completely displaced. While it is interesting, the Peshtigo fire brought horrors to the people affected, and it is important to learn from these events so that they do not happen. There's a museum in Peshtigo, Wisconsin, where all the artifacts that they found at the cities that burnt in the Peshtigo fire are stored, and that's really the only place that they have with physical artifacts that are left from it. The blaze ended up burning 11 or 12 towns completely to the ground, and within an hour or so, Peshtigo was completely flattened. So they used the museum to kind of use as a placeholder for the town that was once there. Thank you.